Hey guys, Sandy, Missouri here. We are having some technical difficulties, and my guest will be on in just a moment. There she is. Wow, look at that long hair. Okay, let me just add her. This is like thrown straight into the fire.
And let's call it COVID hair at this point.
We are live. I can't hear you.
You can't hear me. Unmute. Can you hear me now?
I still can't hear you. Can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Wait a second. Let me make sure that the problem's not me.
Okay.
Oh, well. Let me find out. Okay. Well, let's see. Technology,
not our friend.
Cam mic, let's see. Audio. Speaker. Oh, I'm the problem. Look at that. It's playing and I can't hear it. What's going on here? How my computer hates me. Okay, can I hear it now?
I can hear you.
Nope.
Can you hear me?
Oh, wait a second. Hello? Test. No? Isn't this great?
I can hear you.
Oh my gosh. Oh, I think it might work now. Talk.
Hi.
Oh, I can hear you. Hi.
How are you?
Sorry about that.
No problem.
Well, yeah, now that I got the audio working, I'm great.
Yeah, we both have pink glasses.
I know. We're matchy-matchy.
This is gonna
and I was on with Sarah earlier, and she was wearing a red dress. So it's like we all got the memo.
Well, I didn't get the memo. I got the memo about the glasses, not the outfit.
Well, yeah, she wasn't wearing pink glasses. So, I sent one memo to each of you.
Yeah. Good job.
Well, that was a very interesting way to start a live. Like we said, it's live. That's what happens when you're live.
Exactly.
All right, let's see. Looks like I'm getting a bunch of comments here. They can hear me. Okay, good.
Yay.
Wow. Dana, do you have a copy of your book on you?
I do.
Oh, good. Okay. Well, you can hold it up to the camera because I put my copy of your book in a safe place, so now I can't find it.
There we go.
There's your book. Awesome.
Matching the painting behind me.
That's right. So I'm gonna give a clap just so I can see an audio spike. If I ever edit this into a more whatever. So there we go.
Yay.
Hey guys, it's Sandy, Missouri, and I am here live, very live, with Dana Wright Wasson, the best-selling author of Walk the Talk. And you know what, Dana? I'm just going to let you tell about yourself instead of me telling you. But guys, I do want you to know, Dana is amazing, and she has done a TED Talk. So right there, that's really everything you need to know.
There you go. And you did the very, very common thing to do, which is you called it Walk the Talk, and it's actually Talk the Walk.
Talk the Walk. Oh my God.
Yeah.
I'm just batting 1,000 today.
Yeah, don't worry. That's a really common thing. And the reason that I named it what I did is because we're going beyond just walking the talk. If you can actually talk about what you're doing, then that's really just going beyond just walking it. You actually can talk about what you do.
Like walking and chewing gum at the same time, huh?
Exactly, something like that.
Yeah. Not so good at that.
We won't try that today because I don't think either of us have the technology to do it.
Yeah, no. These things are not my friends today.
Yeah.
I'm having like lighting issues. It's like everything that can go wrong at the moment is.
Right. You look great, so I'm not noticing any of those things.
Yeah. Hey, the beauty of live, right? That's the whole beauty of it.
Yeah.
But let's talk a little bit about your book, Talk the Walk.
Yes, Talk the Walk.
Which, right? I know that as soon as this interview is over, I'm going to go out of my desk and there's your book going to be right in front of my face. After I've tried to tear the house apart, trying to remember where I put it so I wouldn't forget it.
Yes, yeah. Don't worry.
So speaking of the book, why did you write it? Tell me more about the concept behind it, and what.
Okay. Yep. Well, I had been doing a lot of strategic planning work and found that when I worked with groups who were doing strategic planning, that was all fun and good. But when they would, it was typically the they was senior leaders, when they would try to roll out their strategy, their strategic plan out to an organization, it would fall flat and nothing would happen because there was this huge gap between the people who had come up with the plan and the people who were going to actually do the plan. And so I became very passionate about how do you create this engagement between the people who are going to do it and the people who came up with it. And so strategy engagement became something that was a personal passion to me. And so I was taking lots of notes and reading lots of articles and books and things like that. And then the world started really focusing on employee engagement. So the idea of how do we create more engagement for employees so that they want to give their best selves at work and blah, blah, blah. And so I happened to get involved in a project where we started going out and talking to employees and saying, where's the gap happening and how can we start to take actions that will actually make a difference? So I sat down and I had, by this point, I had a huge pile of articles and, references and notes and things like that. And I sat down to write my first book, and that wasn't the book that came out. So I wrote a book called We've Got to Start Meeting Like This, because I had just left some meeting in Chicago, got on a plane, and I was really frustrated, flipped open my laptop, I'm starting to type an outline, and suddenly, which never really happens to me, I'm on the airplane and they said, we're about to land. And I went, wait, what? Didn't I just start? And I looked down, I had this full-on outline for a book, which happened to be that book. So I wrote that book, shared the outline first with a friend. She said, oh my God, you have to write this book because people struggle with this all the time. So I'm like, sigh, okay, that's not the book I really wanted to write, but okay, I'll go ahead and write it because it'll be really easy for me. And that was great, launched it, got a lot of really positive comments and feedback. The book did pretty well. And I had a really great process for how I did it. And so I decided to do a book writing workshop in Mexico back when we could travel. Sigh. So I took a group of people to go write their books. And the process was so good that I had a lot of free time on my hands. And so I opened my computer and I started writing, and out popped baby number 2. This is how accidental births happen, I'm pretty sure. So, wrote a little tiny book called To Meet or Not to Meet, which was about how to have internal meetings in companies. And I, again, was like, deep sigh, this is not the book I really wanted to write. So I keep going and I'm like, I have to write the book that's really like my heart and my passion. And finally, one September, it was 2017, I believe. And I've been thinking about this for I don't know, a little over 13 years, and collecting ideas and thoughts and stuff. So I put out an email to all of my best dear friends and colleagues, and I said, I am committing that I'm going to write this book by the end of this year. And if I don't, I am committing to you that I will tear up all my notes, shred everything I have, and never speak about this again. And so I kind of put that out publicly to a small audience. And sure enough, by the end of November of that year, I went ahead of my deadline. I'd outlined it and I'd written it. And I looked down and I thought, okay, great. So off it went. And so I was really, really happy to write this book because it's really about how do you create the conversations that make real change happen, whether it's around strategy, whether it's around engagement, employee engagement, and about when you are bringing companies together in some sort of acquisition setting, because a lot of times people screw that up too. So it's really all about how to create those conversations to help people and what kind of leadership needs to be in place and the culture, and thinking about all the parts of culture that support those changes happening successfully.
Wow.
So, that's it.
So when you first had the idea with the first book, and you thought, okay, I'm going to write a book. I mean, did you have any fears about it, or was it just so serendipitous that you didn't really have time to think about it?
I don't think I had any fears about it. There's always those little niggling thoughts in your mind of who am I, the imposter syndrome kind of things that you think about. But I wasn't thinking that I didn't know enough. I was really thinking of it being really not my book. So I included a lot of interviews with people. I had other people contribute a lot. So it felt more like I was compiling a lot of information on behalf of and in service of other people who had a lot of information. So that wasn't really hard. What I find when I write, and probably others feel this too, is there's this struggling inner toddler in me that gets really tantrumy about when I say, okay, we're going to sit down to write. And they're like, how about the laundry? Let's go dust.
Right.
Let's go shopping. So it's really controlling that little inner toddler tantrum to say, no, we're going to be sitting and we're going to write, and chunking it down, because there's this other part of at least me that I want to, I want to do something and I want to finish it. And it doesn't work that way with a book. Like, you have to chunk it and take on pieces of it in order to get it done. It's not unless you're writing a children's book, maybe, you can't really sit down and then in the end of a session be able to finish a book. So it's really the discipline of understanding that and just being kind with yourself. Yeah.
So you had mentioned your writing process. Tell us a little bit about that, how you kind of go about that. Is you said you started with an outline.
Yes, started with an outline. What I really start with, Sandy, is stickies. So I'm really, really, I'm a 3M supporter. Should have bought some time ago. But I really just put ideas on stickies. So I use my own process in creating a book. And so I'll put up a big piece of paper, or I'll put a poster board or something. And I'll just keep kind of fiddling with the stickies. What I like about it is that they're very movable. And so I didn't ever take a picture. I'm very sad. I didn't take a picture, but every single chapter in this book was on its own poster board with the stickies. And so, and I had them all set up in my daughter's room, who I think had gone off to college at that point. And so I could go in and grab a board and say, this is the chapter I'm going to work on. So I didn't do it in order. I did it based on what was moving me that day, what was grabbing me, what was important to me to think about and talk about that day. And so that's really how I did it. It was like poster board, typing, and getting out of this idea of you can't edit what you haven't written yet.
Right.
So being very careful to not synthesize and try to edit what I was doing as I was actually putting the thoughts on paper. So that's hard too, because the perfectionist in us all wants to get it perfect the first time.
Right.
It doesn't work that way. You have to get it out there first and have it be messy and rough and ugly first before you make it pretty and nice looking with a bow.
Well, that's really interesting. I've never thought of doing it that way. I mean, I can see how, it's hugely visual to do it like that. And I mean, when you've got it on the big poster boards, I mean, it's really in your face to be able to look at it and think about it. I really like that. I've never thought of that style before.
Yeah, it's interesting too, because this book originally was stickies, and then I had a friend help me type them up, and they got onto a nice, neat piece of paper, and I was lost. I could not follow what was on the paper, and I had to blow it back up into stickies again. So it's a process that works for me.
Well, I think that a lot of people who are visual might find that to be easier. I mean, for me, I'm text-based, so I actually have to write with pen and paper. I can't even do it on the screen. I actually handwrite in a notebook and then transcribe it, and then literally cut and paste it.
Wow!
I'll print it out and I'll literally cut it into pieces and move them around. Yeah.
So you're doing your own sticky process, but with your handwriting.
Yeah, old school, I guess. That 80s style.
Yeah. I'm a good writer, but I'm not fast enough to keep up with my brain. So that's why the stickies work for me.
Yeah. No, I really like that. That's guys, that's a great tip. I hope you were paying attention to that, because that's a huge tip, especially for those of you who are more visual.
Yeah. Works for me. Keeps 3M in business and works for me.
Very cool. Well, you've answered like 6 of my questions in one. So let me just reorientate myself, because you're so awesome. So tell me, the after effects of the book.
After effects meaning like what it produced?
So Right. So I know Talk the Walk has only basically recently come out, right?
Yep.
That one's pretty new, but your other book was out for a while. So, I mean, did your life change? Did your business change? Was it just like, yeah, now I'm an author? I mean, was there any change or any effect?
I think it changed my mindset. I mean, obviously a book gives you a bit of street cred. You know, it's like, well, I have something behind me. What was hard about writing the first two books is it wasn't my passion project. Mm-hmm. So I didn't want to be known as the meeting person. And so I didn't actively promote. It just felt like I channeled those books out into the world. I got lots of feedback. I had lots of people say, you know, colleagues and friends, people who didn't have to say these things, say, I used your book to create our conference and it was so helpful. And it was like, oh, that's great. You know, like, but it wasn't my passion. I was very glad that I had created something that was useful and other people were be a useful tool to be able to guide them and create better outcomes. But it wasn't my passion project. You know what I mean? Like sometimes I would call them my oops babies because they were kind of like the accidents, the happy accidents. And I also thought about, you know, somebody reframed it to me and said, sometimes you have to get those things out before you write the book that you're really, really passionate about. And so I'm kind of thinking of it in that sort of framework. But Talk the Walk has really has helped me and will help me more so because I think it's very timely now in the world that we're living in with all the chaos and confusion, you know, with COVID and everything else that's going on. I think it's really helpful to get people down back to basics about understanding the important role that leadership plays. I have really been struck this year. I have never, ever heard the word empathy used so much on TV and, you know, shows and even the Democratic National Convention. I mean, if I had been playing a drinking game during that, I would have been 12 minutes. Because really the word empathy just comes up over and over. And so this book talks a lot about those leadership skills being so critical in today's world. And they weren't, you know, I wrote the book obviously before COVID. So it's changed in that way. And I've been doing some training around it, just helping people to understand their role in a leadership function. And I'll be doing a lot more speaking around it as well. So.
Very cool. Very cool.
Yeah.
So what's your next book?
Oh God. You know, it's so funny, Sandy. So I went through a period of time where this is now thankfully years ago, but my dad got very sick and my mom had Parkinson's. My dad had other illnesses. Both have passed now, but there was a time where I was taking a lot of notes because we went through a big health thing for my parents, particularly my dad. And I took a lot of notes because I think of my age group and being in kind of, I mean, my kids are older now, but I was at the time where I was raising my kids. They were teenager, pre-teenager, and older parent issues, and just thinking there's a whole block of people who have no freaking idea how hard this is.
Yeah.
And so telling it in a story format so that, you know, with some funny, not funny stories about things that happened, that have happened to me, have happened to friends, and giving tips about how do you find assisted living, you know, all of those sort of things that we don't talk about in a very healthy way, and people just get thrown into it. But to be honest, it's such a diversion from what I've done that it doesn't fit in my brand. And so I haven't figured out quite how to do that. But it's another book that I would just love to produce as a gift to the world, to have it be a resource and say, here's what I went through and here's some funny stories and some useful tips that hopefully people can use. But I haven't really quite recovered from writing this one. So when my publisher said, well, you have 60,000 words, I said, wait, no, I can't have 60,000 words because I was the one in college who had to triple space in order to fill the pages. I'm a pretty concise writer. So when she said I had written 60,000 words, I thought that cannot be right because I can't write that much. I just can't do it.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So why do you think it's important for people to tell their stories or write their book?
I mean, this is my personal bias. Maybe you have it too. I think everybody has a book inside of them. I really do. I think I am really curious for a living and just by nature. And I'm always struck by the stories that people tell me. And I just think, God, it's such a shame. You know, all of them are moth-worthy. If you watch or if you ever listen to NPR's The Moth, which is a storytelling format.
Oh, wow, okay.
storytellers. If you haven't ever done it, it's really, really fun. It's kind of one of those bucket list items I would love to do. And I just think if people could compile some of these stories, some of them have lessons learned, some of them are funny, some of them are sad, some of them are insightful. But I just think so much of that sort of storytelling folklore gets lost because we don't share these stories in a way that other people can appreciate them. And so it would just be really cool. I mean, I know that books are a dime a dozen, literally, at this point. And if you go on Amazon, I mean, you can get lost down a tunnel of, you know, if you're a book lover especially, there's just a book for everything. I listen to NPR a lot. I'm kind of an NPR geek. And they're always talking, it seems, about some book. And I'm like, I want to read that. I want to read that. I want to read that little, you know.
Sounds like my house. There's books everywhere.
I know, books everywhere, and yet I can't crack the spine on all of them because I just can't do that much reading. So
right.
I have to put myself on an Amazon moratorium a lot of times because so many good books, so little time.
You know, it used to be that if I started a book, I would finish it. And I have to admit that, you know, I've ordered more than I can read. My eyes are bigger than my eyes.
Exactly. I know. Well, it's a little too easy, isn't it? It's kind of like crack on your phone. You just go, buy it now, buy it now.
Right?
Yep. I've learned to like find a book, put it in my cart, and then save for later. And I've got like 200 things in that cart now.
Wow. Yeah.
But it saves me some money.
You know, I mean, I figure that if I get it when I'm ready for it, it's there. You know, except days like today when I can't find it when I'm ready for it. But anyway.
I got it. Don't worry.
Yeah, no, but I figured you would, so I wasn't that worried. But yeah, so, you know, and I figure like at some point it'll be near my fingertips at the right moment. So
yep, everything happens for a reason.
I believe so. I think so as well. Even compulsive book ordering.
Yes, right.
Basically, if anybody recommends it or mentions it, I'm probably ordering it. So
yeah, I know.
Hanging out with booky people, that happens a lot.
I bet. Yeah, especially in your line of work, you hear a lot of good books.
I do indeed. I do indeed, and some that are not as great. Yeah. But we focus on the good ones. So, what advice do you have for other, you know, experts, entrepreneurs who have been thinking about it, but for whatever reason can't get past themselves?
I think you really just have to think about what is getting in your way, what's stopping you. Because I think a lot of those things I mentioned earlier are the things that tend to hang people up, whether they think you know, who am I to talk about this? There's other people. Well, if you've thought about it, you're probably thinking about it in some unique way. You're not, it's kind of like art, right? So I'm an artist. This is my painting behind me. One of many.
I mentioned that, by the way. I was noticing that.
Yeah. And I mean, it's the same thing that happens with art that happens with book writing is you think, you know, who am I? And I can't create anything original. But the fact is everything that we create is original. It may be motivated by or inspired by something that you read or you saw or you heard. But if you have something that you feel passionate about, it's so important to figure out how are you going to get it out there and figure out the technique that's going to get it out, whether it's stickies like we were talking about or handwriting it like you were talking about, or just sitting and, you know, there's exercises, writing exercises where people say you just open your computer and you just make it a habit once a day. You sit down for 15 minutes. You don't think about what you're going to say. You just start writing. And it can be gibberish, but eventually something will come out that's meaningful. And you'll go back to that and go, wow, that's really insightful. So, you know, it's kind of those middle of the night thoughts that you have, or while you're running an errand or swimming or whatever it is, something will spark. And to get that down in some way, that may lead to another thought or conversation. And I mean, my first book, as I said, I sat down with a friend over lunch, shared the outline with her, you know, and I'm thinking, oh, it's just something. And she goes, oh my God, you have to write this. And I'm like, oh, really? You know, and I had who am I? And I'm like, who am I not? And it was just so gratifying at the other end. I mean, I'll say one thing, never write a book to make money. Like that is not really your outcome.
Right.
But it's so gratifying to have, I mean, just having my friend Lynn say, oh my gosh, I used this to design our whole conference.
Wow.
It's so gratifying to me. I mean, this is somebody I've known for years and years. And it was just so heartwarming to know something I had worked hard to put on paper and kind of just tossed into the world, especially if you're launching on Amazon. That's really what you're doing. You're just kind of tossing it into the digital ether, and it's like a Frisbee. It's not necessarily going to fly back to you. But knowing that, people, the very first person who bought my very first book was somebody in Egypt. Kid you not.
Wow.
Watching it was the coolest thing. It's like, I don't know this person, no idea who it was, but somebody all the way across the world bought my book. And that was such a cool feeling. Such a cool feeling.
Yeah. Wow. Wow. Yeah. I think you're right. I think that who am I-itis is probably one of the bigger blocks.
Yeah. Yeah. Really, really big. And in fact, when I did the book writing retreat, I had a friend who was crocheting at the time, and she interviewed not only myself, but all the other attendees. And she crocheted, if I could grab it, I would do it, but it would be distracting. She crocheted our gremlin side. So our regular side and our gremlin side. And so it was kind of a turnaround doll. And each of ours was so unique to what we had talked about with her. So one side is kind of your angel self, and then the other side is sort of the devil side that tells you all the bad things.
Uh-huh.
So a friend of mine describes his kind of gremlin side. That's kind of that little voice that, tells you you're not good enough and you're small and all those terrible things.
Yeah.
So his gremlin side is a professor, and he's kind of very scolding and very stern, and you're not smart enough and all that. And so his professor gremlin was just hysterical. And we had so much fun with these little dolls. It sounds silly out of context, but we were on the beach, right? So we'd line them up and pretend like we were torturing them. It was hysterical. So fun. Nutty.
Is there anything else you'd like to share with us?
No, I mean, I am always thrilled when people talk about the impact that something that I've written has had on them.
Yeah.
And feeling like it's making a difference for people in the rethinking. And I think Talk the Walk in particular has a lot of stuff that is commonly known, but compiled in a way that's different. So again, not everything is an original thought, right? I mean, at this point in 2020, probably everything that we could imagine has already been thought of or invented or tried out or something. So, but as a writer, you're kind of reweaving it in a different way to create a different visual. So
hold your book up again there so people can see it.
Yep.
We can invite them to go over to Amazon and check it out. Talk the Walk.
Talk the Walk, Designing a Clear Path to World-Class Employee Experience. And the designing part, just as an aside, is about using design thinking tools to make improvements. So really the idea that there's all sorts of tools and techniques and processes that you can use to start engaging employees.
Very cool. And where can people go and find out more about you?
They can go on my website. So I'm at take-action.com or danawright-wasson.com, spelled like it is on the screen.
I'm gonna put the take action up there. Did I spell that correctly?
Yep, you did.
Okay, good.
I would say take action, do something. And that's what I'm all about, is really don't just sit and do nothing. So I say this to writers, I say this to leaders, don't do nothing. Just try out micro changes and see what happens.
I love that. And it's really so true, because we get so overwhelmed thinking, okay, I have to do this massive whatever it is. When it's really, take a tiny little bite, take a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, when I teach leaders, it's I know this is overwhelming, so try some little thing and see what happens, and see how comfortable you are, and see what you could make as a next change.
Yeah.
And by doing that, we all get somewhere.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for coming and sharing your wisdom and your positivity and your writing style. I love that. I love that sticky tab, the sticky note thing.
Yeah,
I mean, that's really a revelation. It's new to me. So
yeah, lots of fun too. It's fun to just rearrange and move things to a different chapter if you need to, and you're not having to do a lot of online editing.
Right. You just pull the sticky tab and sticky note and move it to the next board. Yeah. I think that's absolutely brilliant.
Yep.
I mean, it doesn't surprise me coming from you, but still brilliant.
Aw, thanks, Sandy.
And I got to do my little plug too for you guys out there. If you want a free copy of my book, book it. You can get it from my website, expertbook4u.com. Book it. Free download at expertbook4u, and you can learn more about Dana at take-action.com.
You got
Man,
it.
I need some caffeine. And Dana, really, thank you so much for coming and joining us. This was so much fun. Don't get off the line. I'm going to end the broadcast, and then I'll come right back to you.
Sounds good.
And for all of you guys out there, thank you so much for joining us. And we will see you tomorrow with another interview. I'm not even going to tell you who it is. It's going to be a big surprise. But I will tell you that tomorrow's author is different in that he actually wrote a fiction book. So totally different thing altogether. Yeah, I have two authors that have done fiction. Mostly I do nonfiction. So this is going to be a little bit different. We're going to learn about fiction tomorrow. Anyways, yes, thank you so much. You guys, thank you so much. You guys now go out and just take a little tiny bite. Go get a poster board and some sticky notes.
That's right.
That's how you can start. And until next time, go forth and bookify.